look at the literature of Bible, look at the Quranic injunctions. There can be nothing more blatantly discriminatory than what these books contain. What they do is they primarily divide the entire humanity into two sections which are at war with each other. And that war is also one-sided. One group has decided to impose the war on the others. That is what was happening during colonial period, and this is an extension. The only difference is at that time they were using the official apparatus to convert. They were using their guns, they were using their swords. Now they have started using applied psychology and academic hegemony to further the same agenda.
Namaste everybody, welcome to Citti Media. My name is Citti, your host. As we speak today, there is a global conference, a global amalgamation of different academic interests who are coming together in the name of Dismantling Global Hindutva. So we have been dedicated here at Citti Media in covering that because this seems to be xenophobic, to say the least. Joining us is teacher and author and a well-known commentator, Neeraj Atri ji. Neeraj ji, thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks for inviting me, Sharan ji.
Neeraj ji, first of all, let us dive right into the conversation. What is your take on the conference? How do you see this?
I see this just as a continuation of what the Abrahamic, or more specifically the prophetic creeds, have been trying to do for last about 1800 years. That is decimation of all those civilizations which do not agree to their monopolistic worldview. We can refer to the Judeo-biblical literature or the Islamic literature, which both of which state that their point of view is correct, and all those who do not subscribe to their point of view, their cosmology, their worldview, they are pagans, infidels, kafirs, and they need to be eliminated, decimated, or destroyed. And I see this conference just as an extension to all those crusades and jihads which have been going on around the world for last 1800 years.
Right. Neeraj ji, I was following up on the updates on the conference, and many people, including popular intelligentsia from India and Pakistan as well, as are a very active part of this. And what they are comparing Hindutva to is white supremacy and Islamic radicalism, especially when we are marking the 20th anniversary of the 9/11 attacks. Do you think there is a comparison, or is this even justified according to you?
It is reprehensible if somebody is doing that, because just look, you should just visit their website. What they're saying is, if you've been trolled by Hindutva, so what you are equating is AK-47 wielding terrorists with somebody who is trolling you on internet. So that would be just like comparing that, okay, a virus is also a human being, or a virus is a living organism, and an elephant is also a living organism. It is as close to reality as it can get.
Right. No, I was going through the website, and it's a very, very well-designed website. I must be, we must give credit where due. And they have a very interesting glossary as well. Now, what the website was focusing on, and the overall conference is focusing on, is, of course, smashing Brahminical patriarchy. And they blame upper caste Hindus, especially Brahmins, for oppression of Dalits and other allegedly, supposedly lower caste communities in India. So what do you have to say about this?
See, as I previously said, that this is just an extension of what they have been trying to do in the garb of Christianity or missionary activities. If you look at the colonial literature, at that time also what they were doing was, when they introduced the census system in India, the census enumerator were given specific instructions that you're going to create castes, because prior to that there was no ironclad caste system in which there were compartments that, okay, this is one caste and it cannot migrate to the other. So that is what the colonialists did in our country. And then a more specific purpose was that look at all those people whom you can cleave away from Hinduism, whom you can just label away from Hinduism. And that is what they've been doing with tribals, animists. You can give various labels to them. But again, when you look at the reports which were being filed by various enumerators of those census, they were time and again saying that there is no demarcation between Hinduism and animism. There is no demarcation between Hinduism and tribalism. So what do we do? What should we do? And they did not have any solution to that.
Right.
What the modus operandi is normally is that start hitting at the elites or start hitting at those who can hit back. So since Brahmins were well versed in the literature of the Christianity also, they were able to talk back in English also, they had to be demonized. And once you can cleave them away from the majority of the masses, then it becomes very easy to convert them. Right. Now, see, during colonial periods also, what was happening? There were different groups, or at least we think of them as different groups. Like one were who were the administrators, second were the missionaries, and third were the Indologists. Now, these three major groups, they had small points where they argued with each other. But they had a very large common ground with them. And what was that common ground? That India or Hinduism is a den of ignorance, inequality, and falsehood. It is full of discrimination between different castes. Now try to compare it with their own books. Look at the literature of Bible. Look at the Quranic injunctions. There can be nothing more blatantly discriminatory than what these books contain. What they do is they primarily divide the entire humanity into two sections which are at war with each other. And that war is also one-sided. One group has decided to impose the war on the others. That is what was happening during colonial period, and this is an extension. The only difference is at that time they were using the official apparatus to convert. They were using their guns, they were using their swords. Now they have started using applied psychology and academic hegemony to further the same agenda. They also that if India is in a state of ignorance, then Hinduism is to be blamed for it. And if it is Hinduism, then Brahmins are to be blamed for it. Right. And if we want that white man's burden, that if we want to save India, then Brahmins and Brahmanism has to be vanquished. Earlier, they tried to do physically. Now they're not trying to physically eliminate, they're trying to psychologically decimate or eliminate them. If you notice all these three sections, they were of the opinion that what they should be doing is they should be increasing the influence of Western imperialism, and by using their grip on academics, their grip on the education system, they should wipe out the concept of Hinduism, the concept of what they used to call pagans, they have to be wiped out. And in that light, if we notice, this conference makes perfect sense, because now, why is it so blatant? That is also a question that arises.
Yes.
What has happened is in this last decade, the advent of internet, the proliferation of internet, I would say, and social media has given us a platform to talk back to them. Earlier, it was a one-way communication. They would pontificate and we had to listen. Even if we had a point to say, we just could not say because we didn't have any platform for that. Now, since we are talking back to them, so this edifice of falsehood that they so assiduously created has started tumbling down. It has started tumbling down. It is falling. Right. So I see this conference as a sign of their frustration.
Right. Very interesting points made, Neeraj. Thank you so much for that. And if we were to actually look at the outcome of the conference, now you were very right in saying, and in fact, one of the sessions in the seminar is how the RSS and Hindutvavadis in India are using technology to their best. And then these guys want to counter that with their use of technology. to their best ability. Now, obviously, like if we were to look at the facts on the ground in 2014, in 2019, and not to make this political, but the Bahujans, the lower caste, the OBCs, even Muslims to a certain extent, did popularly vote in support of Narendra Modi. So he has earned the mandate, and that was only possible because of the kind of work that they have done on the ground. And because propaganda only works to a certain extent for political parties, at the end of the day, it's only the work that matters for them. So in that sense, now I'm sure we can agree on a commonality that this will definitely not affect the communities that they're trying to agitate. So who are the real people who are vulnerable to this sort of nonsense?
One thing before I answer your question, something that was leaping out of what you were saying was that OBCs and Bahujans, they're trying to keep them away from the broader Hindu system. Narendra Modi himself belongs to an OBC community.
Yes.
And now had they tried to propagate this idea that this is a country where the democratic setup, where all the upper castes, so-called lower castes, they have voted Modi into power, that would have just punctured their propaganda. And
Right.
this is a fact which they are hiding from the public when they're saying that it is a tyranny of the upper caste over the so-called lower castes. So now, sorry, I missed your question, forgot your question in this.
So in that sense, who are really vulnerable to this propaganda?
When we talk of this vulnerability, now most of the people have been able to see through their designs.
Right.
Especially those who are educated enough, who are going to be attending these conferences, they know, they have seen through this. But then still there is a purpose of the conference. The purpose is to create a sort of atrocity literature, a sort of content has to be generated, which then again will be quoted. One will quote the second will quote the third, and that this echo chamber, ECHO, echo chamber I call them, they keep on echoing their own statements and then try to magnify it to present in front of world as if there have been a lot of atrocities on minorities and so-called lower castes, so that the regimes can be pressurized to toe the line which they are advocating. Right. So I don't see any vulnerable section is going to buy this agenda. It will be more of the upper elites who are going to pick up some stray sentences and some documents which they will be creating to quote it and supply them to the missionaries to keep on working upon this.
Right. You're absolutely right, Neeraj ji. And since you were also mentioning that there is some sort of an agenda to push an anti-establishment effort in India, especially this comes because of Modi's planned visit to the United States, where a Quad meeting is supposed to happen, especially because of the geopolitical tensions that we have. You know, this meeting is not just any other political meeting, but it has a very, very strategic implication. So in that sense, do you think this was pre-planned, especially because not just because of Prime Minister Modi's planned meeting, but also because we are marking the 20th anniversary of 9/11 attacks, and yesterday was Ganesh Chaturthi?
Absolutely. These are the twin objectives which they are masking. See, at a time when Taliban has taken over Afghanistan, we should have been talking about jihad. We should have been talking about terrorism. The terrorism which is killing people, which is inherently misogynistic, and which has resulted in unmitigated misery to millions of people. So to hide or to divert attention from this cesspool which has been created in Afghanistan and its neighborhood, this conference is a very nice way of deflecting the spotlight away from where the action is to something where it is non-existent. And as far as Modi ji's visit is concerned, absolutely that is also true, because it serves a twin purpose. One, it masks the actual area of conflict and actual area of problem. And secondly, it will be used as a tool to put some kind of a psychological pressure on the state head to at least try to soften his stand in accordance to the line which they will be perpetuating in this conference.
Right. Neeraj ji, thank you for that. And I have perhaps the last question for you. I was reading this op-ed in Dawn, Pakistan's newspaper, and one of the Indian contributors wrote there saying that the last remaining bastions which are challenging Modi's Hindutva is West Bengal, Tamil Nadu, and Kerala. Now, I find this extremely laughable, and of course, you can link this to how perhaps the quote-unquote Hindutvavadis can actually resist this kind of neo-colonial literature, should I say, that is trying to be perpetrated in academia in the United States. Now, in that sense, all these three states that they have mentioned are very, very cultural, perhaps more than every other state in India. Tamil Nadu is one of the most cultural places you can see. Kerala is the land of Sabrimala, and they worship Durga in West Bengal. So in that sense, do you agree with what they have to say, and why do you think they're actually praising these bastions?
They are praising these bastions because these states are giving them political academic space to push their agenda.
Right.
Just look at what is happening on the ground. Today, we are suffering from this COVID pandemic, and all other states have been able to combat it effectively, except Kerala, which is contributing to 70% of the casualties taking place today, and the number of people who are being infected on a daily basis. Try to imagine the largest state, Uttar Pradesh, having more than 20 crores of population and COVID under complete control.
Right.
That should have been the spotlight, that it is a success story which has been written by Yogi Adityanath. But that goes against the agenda.
Right.
Because then they'll have to admit that somebody whom they tried to demonize as someone who is a right-wing monster, he has proven himself to be an able administrator, and without any kind of bigotry or any kind of discrimination between Hindu and Muslim, he created a state which is at peace with itself and effectively combated COVID. On the other hand, look at Kerala, one of the smallest states, one of the easiest states it should have been to manage, and the cases are spiraling out of control.
Right.
But not a word of what should I say? There is not a single word criticizing them.
Yes.
Criticizing and even questioning the capability of the person who is at the helm of the affairs.
Right.
That is the kind of hypocrisy we are looking at.
Absolutely.
Likewise, look at West Bengal. Right now, there is a state-sponsored program that is going on. Even the High Court has gone on to record that the state has looked the other way when atrocities were being perpetrated, which is a very civilized way of saying that it is the complicity of the state in the ongoings which are taking place in West Bengal. So that is how the narrative has been absolutely inverted on its head, that where the worst kind of human right violations are taking place, worst kind of atrocities are taking place, they are being shown as some kind of resistance to tyranny, whereas actual tyranny is taking place in West Bengal itself.
Right.
And as for Tamil Nadu, they've just added it for their own vacuity, I would say, nothing else.
Thank you, Neeraj, for that. But I have a small follow-up with you. Now, you're somebody who's very well-read and who has also written on many of these issues simultaneously. Now, keeping the academia in West aside, because there is only possibility to a certain degree that you can change or produce counter literature to that, to what they're producing. But even in India, even after so many years, we haven't been able to, sort of put up that kind of a challenge, put up that kind of a resistance. So according to you, what do Hindus need to do in order to get their voices out? What are we doing wrong?
Primarily, what we've done is we've not uprooted the colonial structure which was put in place by Britishers. We've been following their legacy. So we have to decolonize ourselves, what is nowadays called decoloniality, which is starting from Latin America, and we've just started picking it up. I think it should be accelerated. And as long as we stick to the structures which were created by colonialists, we are going to suffer in the same manner. So, what all of us need to do is uh, break free of the shackles of this mental slavery, decolonialize ourselves, and talk from a position of strength instead of looking towards West and taking cue from them. We should use our civilizational ethos, our civilizational structure to present our own point of view and look at West from our own lens. That is, I think, the first thing that we need to do.
Right. Thank you so much, Neeraj ji, for joining us. Of course, this conference is going to happen over the next 1 or 2 days as well. And I'm sure we will get a lot of interesting insights from the conference, and we shall be updating all our viewers about it. But Neeraj ji, not only have you covered the conference into its detail, but you've also given us sort of an experience about what linkages this has to our colonization and the historical baggages that we carry. Thank you so much for joining us. I hope you can join us again for such conversations.
Sure. Thank you, Sharan. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, Neeraj ji. Namaste.
Namaste.
And to everyone who's watching Citti Media, please do like, share, and subscribe. We will be bringing more updates from this conference. Until then, this is your host, Sharan Citti, signing off.
Please remember to subscribe to us and switch on the notifications for this channel. For our other social media links, more content, and to support our work, please visit citti.net. Dhanyavad. Namaskar.